heard the click and it's recording. Okay.
Hello, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
My name's Michele. Can I ask what your preferred name would be?
It's Charlie.
Hi, Charlie. Well, once again, it's very nice to meet you. My name is Michele. I am a Fanshawe SSW student. And before you came, you did sign the confidentiality forms, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't read them though.
Okay. So, would you mind if I just went over them really quickly with you?
Sure, go ahead.
Alright, so confidentiality basically means that what you say here or what you disclose here is kept between us. It's not disclosed to any third party. However, there are 4 reasons as to why I would have to break confidentiality. So the first reason for that would be harm, so self-harm. So if you plan to harm yourself or harm someone else, I would have to report that to the proper authorities. The second one would be child abuse. So if you mention anything about abuse or child abuse in the home or anything that you know of, I would have to also report that to the authorities. The third reason would be by law. So if by law, say a lawyer or someone of that sort would come to me and ask for information, I would have to give that information out. That's just required by me by law. And the fourth reason would be if you do give me written consent, I would be able to disclose that to the person of your choosing with that written consent. Does that sound okay to you? Any questions?
No, that sounds okay.
Awesome. So just before we start, I do just have a couple questions. My first one being, have you ever been to counseling before?
Never.
Never? Would you mind if I just went over kind of what to expect, what counseling is sort of about? Okay, so in counseling, the main thing is that you're going to be talking, basically leading the conversation. I'm here to listen, ask some questions, get to know you, and maybe we can find some solutions to possible problems of what brought you here today. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right, and my last question just kind of revolves around, what are your goals for counseling? Do you have any goals set for counseling or even just this session?
Just my friend said it might help me with the way I'm feeling to talk about my challenges. So that's my goal, to feel a little better, I guess.
Okay. So just starting off the counseling session, can I ask you why you came to see me today?
Well, Michele, I think that I feel right now sort of isolated and confused.
Isolated and confused?
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit why you feel that way?
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
Okay. And how long have you been feeling this way?
I'd say it's probably been a month.
A month?
Yeah.
And can you tell me when you started, like what kind of caused you to start feeling this way about a month ago?
I'm not sure. I mean, I saw my dad a month ago, so that might be it.
Can you tell me a little bit about your dad?
Well, he left when I was 11, right? But I hadn't seen him since that time, so I just dropped in on my aunt. She lives on the reserve, so I went to visit her, and he was there, so.
And was that a difficult encounter for you?
Yeah.
So you said you haven't seen him in about 11 years or so?
No, I was 11 when he left.
Oh, you were 11.
So that's 20.
My apologies.
That's okay. It's been like 25 years.
Oh my goodness. So 25 years you haven't seen him at all. And how was it seeing him after all that time?
Well, I mean, I was happy to see him, and I was like, hey, Dad, good to see you. When he left, he basically said, I wasn't going to amount to much. And I said, hey, I got my GED, because when he left, I sort of dropped out of school and got into some trouble and stuff. But, I got my GED. I'm in the carpentry program, so I said, I'm in the carpentry program. I'm in the top half of the class, so I'm doing okay. And he's like, oh, you'll quit that just like you quit everything else. So I was like, that was hard for me to hear.
Okay, so you met your dad after not seeing him for a very long time. He left when you were 11, and you just recently saw him after 25 years.
Yeah.
And, when you met him, it was kind of a difficult encounter. Just because he told you these things that, you're going to quit carpentry even though you seem to be very successful in it, and that's wonderful to hear, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. So seeing your dad was difficult. Can you tell me a little bit, have you talked to anyone about this?
I mean, not really. I don't have close friends that I could talk about this with.
Okay.
I mean, my roommate knows that I did see my dad, but I don't think my roommate knows the extent of, our relationship. And I tried talking with my mom, but she doesn't really want to ever, my dad left us, and for her, it's almost like he's dead. That's, so I don't really have anybody to talk to, which is sort of why I'm here, right?
So you just mentioned a little bit about your mom and how she's feeling about this situation. Can you tell me a little bit more about her?
I mean, she's a strong woman. She didn't move on romantically, I guess, after he left, but, she helped me. I joined a group of young men that were not, like it was a gang, and I got into some trouble. She was able to help sort of get me out of that life. So she's strong that way, but she's not supportive, I guess, of education, right? So she doesn't really, she's not sort of, hey, good job, Charlie, like,
Okay.
So she's a very good mom, but she has different priorities. She'd like me to be back on the reserve and, start having kids and things like that.
So your mom is very close to the reserve and the people.
She lives on the reserve, yeah. But
Oh,
she's
okay.
a full native, so
Well, that sounds. Your mom is very supportive. She's been there for you, and she's very supportive in that way. But she's not too much focused on your education. Was that difficult for you? Not really.
it was a challenge. But I
It's a
mean,
challenge.
she wants me to be my own person, It's just that if she had her choice, I'd be shooting up grandkids for her, right? Because, the perils of an only child is like, you have this pressure, and I'm in my mid-30s now, so it's kind of like, where's my grandbabies and stuff? So she's nice about it, but I know that if she had her way, I would have given her a grandbaby or two. So
Can you tell me? Are you looking to have grandchildren or your own children?
I mean, it's tough because it goes back to my dad, right? Like I'm thinking, am I going to be like him? Like, what kind of dad doesn't want a relationship with their son, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not aware of many, and I have one, and it's so part of me is like, I don't want to be like my dad, if that makes sense. But part of me worries I would be like my dad, So
Can you tell me why you feel, or can you explain to me as to what makes you feel that you would become sort of like your dad in that aspect if you were to have children?
well, just when I look at my dad, I see myself, right? Like physically, we resemble each other, and I mean, he's my dad. You know what I mean? So we have certain traits and things that, even though I haven't seen him in a while, it's evident. So would I like kids? Maybe, if I found the right girl. But I would never want to hurt. Like, I'd like to think, hey, I'd be the best dad. I would do everything my dad didn't do. But I would never want to cause this kind of pain on a child, because it's obviously impacted me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about how it's impacted you as you are right now?
Well, I mean, here I was chugging along, doing pretty well in my program, and all of a sudden my grades are like, starting to slide, which is another reason I'm here, right? Like, if it keeps going this way, I'm not going to survive the program. So, one interaction with my dad, I'm back sort of as an 11-year-old kid seeking approval of someone who left.
So you're seeking approval, or you wanted this relationship with your dad.
Oh,
in a
sure.
way.
Like, I went to hug him and everything when I saw him. Like, look, he left, and I have had anger and sadness and rage and, all sorts of feelings. But you still want your dad to accept and love you. Right?
And how are you feeling right now after seeing him and your grades are declining, as you said in your program? How are you feeling right now with all that knowledge and with everything you're going through?
It's sad. Like, it's hard. I mean, I have a part-time job, so I get out of bed. But it's hard to get out of bed, right? Because I've got all this stuff in my head, my worthy. My dad said I wasn't going to be successful. And maybe he's right. He knew me for 11 years. And so, I still go to class. I still go to work. Otherwise, I just sort of sit in my room and, watch the clock go, I guess.
So that's sort of affected you in a way? That's been affected. So you mentioned a little bit about your school and how, your grades are declining. Do you think that has to link towards, your relationship with your father and meeting him after all this time? Or has this been something that's progressed over a long period
No, I was doing pretty well until like you
Okay.
could sort of see the line where after I met him in a couple days, you could see my grades start to, projects weren't being as completed as well as they were, right? Because my mind is not, 100% in the class.
Not 100% in the class?
No, my mind is not,
Oh.
like I'm not paying attention as much as I should be. So my marks have gone down. Like I was getting B's and A's and now I'm getting C's and D's.
Has that been difficult for you?
Yeah, because then in the back of my mind, maybe my dad's right. Maybe I am a loser, right? So, you know, maybe the first 4 months were like a fluke. That's something that's sort of, tossed around in my brain.
And have you talked to anyone, about school and how you're feeling and about how, you're dropping grades and how you've been feeling since your father and met your father?
No, I tried to get out of the funk myself. I tried some different stuff, and then my roommate said, "Why don't you go talk to someone?" Because talking about problems sometimes helps, right? You can sort of
Yes.
see what's there. So this is the first time.
So you tried to solve how you were feeling on your own?
Yeah.
And that didn't go well, or how did that go?
I mean, I tried to exercise
Okay.
because I've heard, chemicals in your body, but I went like 3 days to the gym and there was no, like big burst. I had one night I couldn't sleep, so I tried a couple beers, which I only drink on the weekends, maybe one beer. So I'm like, maybe this will help me feel better, but it didn't. So I'm not sure where to go from here.
So you have been, trying to feel better.
Yeah, I've tried a couple things, just to sort of to get out of the funk, and it hasn't worked yet.
That sounds like with everything that's been going on, that's been, difficult for you. And you talked a little bit about how you've been sad.
Mhm.
Would you say that sort of relates to both your father and school? That's where all your sadness comes from, or that's where everything comes from? Or is there any other issues that might also translate into this?
No, I mean, I had challenges, right? Because being born on a reserve, there's a small subsection of this school that, is like, oh yeah, you get free school, and you don't pay taxes, and, it's pretty marginalized, is how I feel, right? But I was able to sort of deal with that when that was the only thing. But now when you get my dad coming into the picture, that's the main thing. Like, everything else I can deal with, even the, people that don't understand what it's like to be Native. But when you get, it would be my dad after talking to you, it would be my dad, and, wanting to be accepted.
So something that you want to maybe accomplish in counseling is finding ways to deal with how you're feeling, specifically mostly about your dad.
Yeah, because I mean, if he's not going to accept me after all this time, then, like it's been 25 years and I tried, but at least maybe dealing with why he is the way he is, or is it that would be good to sort of talk about my feelings and why people are the way they are, I guess.
And would you like to maybe still develop a relationship with your father if you had the chance?
I mean, in an ideal world, yes, but based on, the last 2 times I saw him, I don't see it happening. And if I put myself out there again and it was the same thing, I might end up back even worse, right?
Yeah.
So for now, I'd say no. Maybe at some point in the future.
So you hope that maybe one day you can have a relationship with your father.
Oh, of course. I would love to,
Okay.
I would love to have him over for dinner and things, but as of right now, it's, a challenge. So for the immediate future, no.
Immediate future. Okay. So there may be a chance maybe far down the line that you would want to reconnect with your father and have this relationship, but after, you deal with your own feelings and you're able to sort through everything.
Yeah,
Does
that's
that
fair.
sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are cutting short on time, so I'm just going to, if you don't mind, just kind of recap what we talked about today.
Sure.
Is that all right with you? So today, we really talked about, how you're feeling after not seeing your father for 24 years since he left when you were 11, and how that's really impacted you. Because of that, you see that you're kind of also suffering in school after that interaction, and that's also kind of been something that's, gotten to you and, has made you feel, in a way sadness. You do think that possibly you could have a relationship with your father far down the line when you're able to deal with your own feelings, and maybe he wants to form a relationship with you. Does that sound all right?
That's fair.
Okay, so maybe this is completely up to you, but in our next session, if you so do want to, maybe we can continue talking about this topic and maybe, develop or discuss some things that we can do to maybe help you with these feelings that you're feeling. Some kind of strategies, some coping strategies. Would that be something that you would like to do?
Yeah, I'd come back.
Okay. Alright, so if you do want to come back, I can have Michelle, she's out in the waiting room, and she can set up our next appointment.
Okay.
If that's something that you're interested in. Awesome, well, it was very, very nice to meet you, and I look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.